Hey guys, I'm Ray, and we are streaming blacksmithing. Welcome to the stream, everybody. Hello, hello. So today is, I think, Wednesday. Yes, it's Wednesday, and we are going to be continuing to work on our Mandalorian Pauldron. So we started this on Friday, and we got pretty decent amount of work. I mean, we started with a flat sheet. We've got a nice little dome starting to form here. But we don't have, this side over here is pretty darn flat. So this is the side that we're going to really focus in on today. What I really want to do is I want to move this hump like over this direction so that the whole thing has an overarching shoulder shape so it bends correctly. So we are going to be spending another day on shaping our pauldron, and hopefully we'll get far enough through this that on Friday we'll be able to start looking into putting in some of the decorations. So I have changed our stakes right now. Or before we had a very shallow stake, and so we've got a relatively shallow bowl starting. This stake here is going to give us a much more bulbous shape. So hopefully that will allow us to get a nice shoulder pauldron shape and get a little bit more fold in that. So we're definitely going to be focusing on this section right here. The first thing that I'm going to do is turn on the forge so that we can get some heat going. It's kind of on the cooler side today, and I'll talk about that a little bit in just a second. So let's get this forge started. All right, so I'm not planning on using the, let's see, what do I have that I can start this on? I guess I'll start it over here even though you guys can't see it. As you can see, I've turned it on. All right. Let's turn on the forge. All right, all right. And let's stick the steel in there. Like I said, we're going to be focusing on the back side, the bottom that goes down the arm. So that's what we're going to put in there. I want to get a lot more curve going in this piece. So once we start getting it more a little bit more bulbous, we might actually move to the top of the shoulder again to get that nice round section. We don't need it to be too terribly bulbous yet. We do have a center ridge, and I've allowed myself enough material to create that central ridge. So it can be a little bit wider than it needs to be at first because we're going to bring that in by putting in that central ridge. Let me grab my headphones real fast. They're right there. And hey, Rabbit Scotsman, welcome to the stream. Velas1, also, welcome to the stream. Darksaber Mandalorian lore is WTF. Is it? I am a pretty big Star Wars fan. So I've watched The Mandalorian, I've watched The Clone Wars, I have watched Ahsoka and several other things that have to do with the Darksaber. So the Darksaber is impossible anyway. I mean, it kind of is a little bit impossible. It's kind of weird the way it's shaped and stuff. Because most lightsabers are tube shaped, like the blade itself. Hey, Corwin. You're going to be lurking again for a while. That's all right. You know, welcome to the stream. Thanks for the support anyway. But yeah, I'm feeling a little bit better. It's a little bit on the cold side, and it's definitely windy outside, so there may be a little bit of a lag, frame drops, or even a full stream drop. If that does happen, if we get a full stream drop, I will do my very best to come back. However, there is always a chance that it's just not worth coming back. If we like drop the stream multiple times, I'll probably end early. So hopefully everything, you know, holds out and we don't drop the stream at all. All right, so we are in the middle of an ad break, and once the ad is over, we'll kind of start figuring out what we're up to. I got a few things to talk about as far as housekeeping things, and we can talk a little bit about Star Wars as well. Goodness. I need like another little table. Maybe I should have left the anvil here, you know. I put it over there so that I can put my water on top of it or something. I just wanted it out of the way, you know, so that we could do stuff. I'm going to hit record on the wide angle real fast. And soon I'll hit the record on the close-up. But yeah, things add stuff. We're getting some heat on there, but I could use a little bit more heat, just a little bit. So as I was saying before the ad break so rudely interrupted me, it's relatively windy outside. It's been really, really warm lately, and we're getting a nice cold front in, so the wind is kind of just whipping out there. Like I said, I will try to bring us back up if I drop the stream, but if it just becomes a futile exercise, then we'll probably end. That's also part of the reason why I was not here on Monday. Unfortunately, Monday, I couldn't breathe. So I just decided that I was going to take the day and kind of rest. I spent Sunday cleaning up our main stake here, and I also did a whole bunch of work on the axe because next week's video is going to be the axe head. This week's video, the one that came out today at 10 a.m., it's out, and that is the hold down that we made together. So that is there and ready for you guys to watch. It's a project overview. And yeah, so I kind of overdid it, and I regretted it on Monday. I knew I was going to. I knew it was like a 50-50 chance if I went out on Sunday and I started working that I would have to cancel Monday's stream, and I really didn't want to, but I needed to get it done. I saw the hold down video today. It turned out nice. I hope so. I thought it turned out pretty good. The hold down itself, the video was all right. I feel like I don't know. I enjoy editing the interviews a little bit better than our project overviews. I'm trying to make the project overviews a little bit more interesting to watch, and I think I'm starting to get the hang of it, but I'm working on it. We'll get better as we go. So yeah, like I said, today is day 2 of shaping that pauldron, making it nice and shaped correctly, so then we can start putting in the edging. There is a central ridge down the center of the shoulder that goes down just like so, and there is also some edging, and they're kind of blocky, so I have an idea for how we're going to go about that. I actually have a few sharp edged discs of steel. So this one is one of the ones that I'm looking at. So we've got this, and we'll kind of use this to make that central stripe and also the edging. So you'll probably see this guy on Friday. And well, I'm hoping we'll see it Friday. It's going to help us get some nice straight lines that actually follow the curve of the pauldron. So yeah, we were talking about the Darksaber a little bit. The Darksaber, it's kind of got a weird blade shape, which is very different from the rest of the lightsabers in the Star Wars universe. The Star Wars universe lightsabers, typically they have a cylindrical blade, and the Darksaber, for whatever reason, actually has a blade shape. So I find that a little bit odd, but I mean, the function of a lightsaber is that it's compressed gas tube that's run through a kyber crystal, and then it's held in place with a miniature force field. So, I mean, obviously the normal force field shape is the cylinder. So maybe the Darksaber's force shape is like more of a square. I don't know how that would happen, but you know, maybe. I'm sure it has something to do with being Mandalorian and Mandalorian culture. It's just cool, though. You know, you got the rule of cool. Things don't always have to be like practical for it to be cool and look nice. So that's kind of my little opinion on the Darksaber, I think. But yeah, I am a super Star Wars fan. Well, not a super. There are many Star Wars fans that are more into Star Wars than I am, but I'm into all of the TV shows and the cartoons and the movies. I've seen all of the movies from the Christmas special all the way up through the new trilogy, and even the Ewok movie and all of the little animated series. Probably based on different fighting style. I mean, I think it is too. I mean, the lightsabers typically are based on, or like the Jedi and Sith fighting styles are typically based on katana, like kendo styles. And I kind of feel like the Darksaber is shaped more like a katana or a but yeah, I remember the Ewok movie, right? So there's like the live action Ewok movie, and then there's also a couple of cartoon Ewok movies / series. And I mean, I watched it all, you know? What I haven't done is I have not read the expanded universe books. So I haven't read any of the original canon books or any of the old canon books. So, you know, like I said, there are stronger Star Wars fans than me, but I'm a pretty big Star Wars fan. So making this pauldron is really fun. It was always my goal once I saw The Mandalorian, like the first episode of the TV series. I was like, ooh, I want to make his armor in cosplay out of like Warblood and foam. And especially when he got his Beskar armor, I was like, ooh, now I can make it in steel. And that would be so cool. So today we're making our first piece of that. I'm not sure that I will ever make all of the pieces because, you know, I kind of want them to be more audience choice. So each piece of armor that we do throughout the coming years or however long this project takes, you know, I'm going to ask you guys what style you'd like to make or you'd like me to do. And, you know, we'll be able to change what style, what media we are making them in. So we'll see what we come up with. It's probably going to be a full suit of really mishmash crossover armor. All right, so we've got some heat. So I'm going to see what I can do with the heat that we've got, doing a first course. Take a sip of that real fast. I am still having a little bit of trouble breathing, but as we go, fingers crossed it'll get better. It usually does. And if not, you know, we'll figure something out. It'll work out. Okay. All right. So we're starting to get a nice curve going in there. Let's try focus in on this section right here. There's a nice fold going in. We might actually end up flipping this over to work on the corner that direction. We shall see. Let's get another heat though. So yeah, I might sit a little bit more today than I normally would, because, like I said, I'm still having a little bit of trouble breathing today, and I think that's really because the air is starting to really change the temperature, I guess. Like I said, we were in like the 50s and 60s Fahrenheit, and we're dropping pretty fast with all of this wind. So when do you know it's ready to be worked on again? The color? So ordinarily, I would say yes. We have discussed this a little bit already on the stream, but as the forge starts heating up, the color of the interior of that the forge bricks starts to change and glow in an orangish reddish yellow color, and you can kind of see it in there a little bit. It's still it's still heating up, so we're not getting the full effect. However, so I know when to pull the steel out when it matches the color of the bricks normally. Now, this is a special situation where I can pretty much take out the material at any point. The heat is going to help me move the steel. However, it is thin enough that even cold, I could move the steel. So the heat is not necessarily required for this time. It's more of an aid or a tool. So I'm using the the heat to make the steel a little less bouncy. It's thin enough sheet that it has a tendency to bounce back up instead of staying where the hammer places it. And the heat kind of helps with that, right? It takes a little bit of the ductability and the spring out of the steel. So I kind of look at it and I judge based on how my gut feeling, I guess. For this particular, it's a little bit difficult to explain. Hey, Dr. Optimal. Things are doing pretty good. Pretty good. Still a little tired from overdoing it over the weekend, but, hoping that forging will shake things loose and get me going again. So I do actually tend to look at the edge of the piece of steel, and I judge by the color of that. So I've got a nice bit of orange glow on the edge of that sheet steel. That's pretty darn hot. That's where I like it. So the heat is going to seep through this sheet steel, and it's going to let it move a little easier. You know what? I forgot to hit record on the close-up, but that's all right. I've only lost one. Oh, wait. No, I do. I have it. I did that already, guys. I did that already. my stake is a little bit wonky, so I'm going to tighten it back up in the vise. All right. Let's do another heat. We'll see what we can see. See what we can see. Pull this direction. And I'm kind of using the shallower end of the hammer for this particular section because I am trying to kind of spread the material this direction and squish it in this direction. This direction versus, or I'm growing it this direction and shrinking it this direction. All right, so I'm going to put this in backwards the way that we were doing it before, mostly because I want to work on the opposite side of it. It's going to be a little bit easier for me to pull it out next heat, I think. You know what? Getting up on this chair is obnoxious. So yeah, like I said, we are trying to kind of focus in on the arm section, kind of trying to curve that out. We don't want to make too much of a vertical curve, mostly a horizontal curve. But we are going to be doing a little bit of both. So this is a silversmithing technique. It's often used for making a vessel, like bowls and teapots and that sort of thing. So it's always interesting trying to translate different techniques into steel because steel just does not work the same way as other metals. Ferrous and non-ferrous metals are very, very different. So a non-ferrous metal, which would be copper, brass, bronze, mostly copper alloys, they tend to be a lot more ductile. They move a lot easier, and you can work them a lot easier while they're cold. Then what you would do is you would do a process called annealing. So you work the copper or brass or whatever cold, then you heat it all up, and you submerge it in a pickle. It's usually water and like citric acid or another acid that will take off any discoloration or anything from the surface of the copper, and that kind of relaxes the piece and allows you to continue working on it because as you work on a piece of metal, whether that's non-ferrous or ferrous metal, it has a tendency to work hard. So the more you hit it, the more you move that metal, the harder it gets when you're working it cold. It's a lot less prominent and it happens a lot less frequently when you are working the steel or the metal hot. And you can work non-ferrous while it is hot, but it has a much lower melting point than steel does. And so you have to be a lot more careful when you are working hot with non-ferrous metals. Unless you're talking about titanium. Titanium has a higher melting point, and so it takes a little bit more heat to work with. Hey, Blue Red. Welcome to the stream. Hello, hello. we are kind of continuing to work on our Mandalorian Pauldron. Working towards the arm area as opposed to closer to the neck area. So when I did my patterns for this, I kind of just sort of drew what I thought that it was going to look like. And because there is a pronounced straight curve closer to the arm and a relatively rounded end on closer towards that neck. And so I did the best I could to kind of create that shape. But there may actually come a time where I have to cut some of that off just to kind of give us a more accurate shape. And I've also left myself a lot more material in certain places than other places. So, you know, it should be interesting to kind of see how it shapes up. Spartan armor, literally muscles everywhere. I mean, yes. I think it's like called a scalacra, something to that effect. And so they have like these breastplates, and they have full on like abs and breasts, or I guess pec muscles. That's a better description. Yes, pec muscles and like abs and stomachs like chased into them. And I've always thought that those were really interesting. They're a lot harder to move around in than articulated armors that came in later. More like the Centurion armors they're made up of a lot of different plates that are bound together, usually with leather and rivets. But yeah, the simulacrum chest plates, they're like a single plate, so it would be hard to do a crunch in them. But they are really cool looking because you can get some really interesting, realistic chest pieces that way. They've also have some amazing like Roman face masks. So they have like, you know, your Centurion helmet, but then they have like a face mask that has like a full Roman statuesque face on it. Another culture who used to do that often is the Japanese samurais. They would oftentimes have like oni masks. Romans were the future. Now we have face masks for COVID. I am not going to get into that. But yeah, there are so many amazing pieces of armor, historical pieces of armor out there. And there's actually a lot of inspiration in the Stormtrooper and Darth Vader armors from Eastern armors, specifically samurai armors. So there's a lot of inspiration within those. This particular shoulder piece is a little less inspired by historical pieces of armor, but, you know, it's still going to be fun. I think that my favorite part of this particular Mandalorian shoulder plate is the, what is it? The little, like, rhinoceros. What is it called? There's an actual name for the type of animal that it is. It's a woolly something. Can't remember. Mudhorn, yes, it's a mudhorn. I love the little emblem, and I'm very much looking forward to chasing that into a sheet of steel. I have yet to decide whether I want to chase it directly into the shoulder plate or if I want to roly-poly or wood lice. Something like that. But yeah, I haven't decided if I want to chase the mudhorn directly into the side of the pauldron or if I want to do it as a piece of separate metal and affix it on. In the show, the armorer creates the Mudhorn emblem separately from the shoulder piece and affixes it later. So the butler told me that that's what I should totally do because it's more more show accurate. But I haven't decided what's going to be better and or easier or, more challenging. Sometimes I decide I want to do something a little bit harder just because it's fun, Would be fun cast piece. That's a whole other process. That is a whole other process. I do actually have quite the background in casting. Because that could be a keychain or whatever too. It definitely could. I think how I would how I would approach that is I would probably carve that into either clay, or I would carve it into microcrystalline wax, and then I would take plaster, molding plaster, and I would make an open face mold of it. I have a whole bunch of pewter that I could use, which has a 500-degree Fahrenheit melting point, which is, very easy to do in a normal oven. And we could totally cast something like that. I'm not sure that that's how I want to go about it because pewter is super heavy. I think it would also be very fun and challenging to chase it into a piece of sheet steel or maybe brass. I could also do nickel silver. Then it would at least be a similar color. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. We'll come to that when we get there, I think. We do have an ad break that's going to start in about 3 minutes. So I'm going to do another round of work on our Pauldron. Hopefully we'll be done with that before the ad finishes. Most of the time, open face molds are single use, unfortunately. So I'm not entirely sure how I would go about doing a multi-cast piece for that piece. Maybe I'll think on it if you guys are interested in seeing how that works. Multiple piece mold, or a mold that allows multiple castings. And I'm gonna fall off this chair if I'm not careful. So now we're starting to get a nice curve in there. So I'm going to work on this side again because the curve is a little bit flat right there. Now I want to fix that. This is going to be a slow back and forth sort of process. Ooh, we can fit the whole thing in now. Heck yes. We were having a lot of trouble with that before. Can make stainless steel kitchen tools, utensils, because aluminum in brain bad. Yeah, I have made stainless steel kitchen, I guess fork, knife, and spoon. I am also planning on doing a revisit on the fork, knife, and spoon sometime this winter. I'm not entirely sure when it'll be, probably closer to like February or March. Maybe as early as, the end of January. But yeah, I want to kind of put the old utensils that we made last year next to the new utensils that we do and kind of take a look at how far I've come as far as learning and growing in my blacksmithing, seeing how much better we can make the new set than the old set. The most dangerous part of blacksmithing, not burning yourself from heat or smashing fingers with hammers, but sitting on a stool. Yes, like I said, I keep almost falling out of the stool because this stool used to have leveling feet, and for whatever reason, they fell out, and it's been a pain in the butt. And the floor is also not level, so, you know, it's kind of moving back and forth and not cool. You can never have enough utensils. That is also true. You can never have enough utensils. Especially if you're working at a restaurant or running a restaurant. Let me grab some water. So yeah. I used to work at a lot of restaurants before I, you know, decided to become a full-time content creator and before I got sick. And one of the things that I learned about the restaurateur business is that you can never have enough utensils. Next spatula, you can add port and starboard attachments, just like SpongeBob, right? That would be fun. But yeah, I used to work at a restaurant, and it never failed. We were constantly running out of spoons and forks, but usually it was more spoons than forks. I don't know what it is. I think people steal spoons, to be quite honest. I think that there is a whole community of people that are just like, they really like spoons, and if they find one that they like, they just take it with them. But I mean, there's also the problem that a lot of people will accidentally throw away their silverware. So, you know, but yeah, you can never have enough utensils. And so, like I said, I want to do another set of them to see how far I've come between this year and last year. We've done quite a few projects, and I've learned a lot about how metal moves. So I really want to try again and see if we can't get things a little bit more tight and a little bit prettier by using, you know, the new knowledge that we currently have. All right, we're getting some real good heat on that piece now that we're able to get it all the way in the forge. So I'm going to check my camera just to make sure that I don't miss some of this. Let's see if I can't. So I know you're probably going to be able to see this in the main camera, like the wide, but I kind of want to get a little bit closer. Just a little bit. Alrighty. I think if we go like, I don't know actually. Is that going to be, no, that's probably the best place we can put an inset. Apologies because it's probably going to cut off a little bit at the top, but we're going to do our best. We're going to do our best. So we've got a lot of really nice heat going there. of that needs to flatten a little bit. We're getting a lot better. If you can kind of see, we've got like a baseball hat shape at this point. So that's pretty good. I think I'm going to leave that there for now. We do need to pull this bulbous section down just a hair. But I think we can do that as we start working on this halo section up where the shoulder, the shoulder meets the arm. So we're going to put it in this direction. Like I said, this is going to be a really back and forth, in and out sort of process. But yeah, I think it's working pretty well. I think we should have most of the shaping done today. And so Friday, we should be able to start doing a little bit of the chasing and decoration. Yes, chasing. No. That's not the process I'm thinking of. Planishing is, though. So planishing is the process of taking out the lumps and bumps out of a piece of, or like a vessel, right? So as you start working, you can definitely see like there's high spots and low spots. And you want to make sure that you've got really smooth transitions and a really nice curve. So planishing is how you take those lumps and bumps out. Does this need to be polished or anything once it is shaped? It definitely will need to be polished because we're going to end up with a lot of forged scale on it. The whole thing, when it's finished and cool, is going to be a dark gray color. And the Mandalorian's Pauldron is a nice shiny silver. We're not going to get quite as shiny silver as the Mandalorian's Pauldron because this is just a mild steel. Even at its shiniest, it's not quite as shiny as the Beskar that Din Djarin has, but we're going to get as close as we possibly can. So in order to do that, we're going to be using a polishing compound and a rag wheel, and that's going to be a fun thing. It's not a fun thing. I hate polishing. I've never liked polishing, but yeah. It'll be used Beskar colored. Yes, very used. So you can kind of start seeing that curve here. Like I said, it kind of looks kind of like a baseball hat now, a little bit. It's not quite as bulbous as a baseball hat, but it's got that like curved brim that it has become iconic in baseball hats. So the butler told me a funny story the other day. The butler works at a TV station and was setting up a kind of like a set for, an interview or whatever, and was kind of setting up lights and things. So they wanted to use a television screen and kind of make sure that you could see the screen from the camera. And so armor slightly used, for sale, 20K credits or best offer. Something like that. Oh, and Baboon with a Knife, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome to the stream, welcome to the community. So yeah, the butler was trying to get the picture on the television in the recording. And so they were setting up lighting. And in order to kind of see the picture moving, they put on our stream, one of the live streams from the YouTube, or I guess the VODs that I put up. And the person that was supposed to be helping the butler, putting the lights up and moving things around and making sure everything looked nice for this this interview setup, got so engrossed in our stream that the butler had to turn it off because they weren't working anymore. So I thought that was kind of funny. It's seen some stuff. Yes, this armor has seen some stuff. It's kind of more like Boba Fett's armor than Din Djarin's armor. Din Djarin's armor is very new. It's very pristine and shiny. But Boba Fett's got that giant dent in his helmet. And that's kind of, you know, maybe it's after Din's gone through a few things. That's audience engagement, right? Yes. I try to make it interesting for you guys watching, and I also try and make it interesting for the people who are watching on YouTube. I try to, you know, because we've got a back and forth going, but I want to make it interesting for the people who are watching after the live, you know? He's probably never using your footage again. Probably not. He likes to watch my shorts, but the long form VOD content, it's usually a little bit too long to watch in one sitting. So it's kind of like a background stuff. All right, let's do another heat. Wouldn't the armor be battle worn after a couple of episodes anyway if it were real? I mean, maybe. I kind of feel like Beskar is a little bit like adamantium, where it just, once it's cast, it doesn't really move. You know, it's just kind of there, permanent. It's not even able to be cut by a lightsaber, you know? Or at least that's what the lore is supposed to be like. All right. We're starting to get those nice folds again, and those are the kind of things that we can upset those down, and that will make the steel more likely to sit flat. All right, we're gonna get some more heat, and then we're gonna work on this section here. I really want to make sure that we are moving all of the steel in a relatively uniform fashion. You can kind of see right there that there's a weird line here. It kind of looks like it's burned a little bit, and I think that's actually part of the rust pattern that was on here before. Always interesting to see things like that. Yeah, I think that at one time, didn't Mandalorians hunt Jedi? Yes. Back in the old Republic days, or even before, like the video games with Revan, the old Republic, there was the Jedi Mandalorian War, and that's where the Darksaber actually came from. It was a relic of that war, where a Mandalorian became kind of a Jedi to help fight that war and win that war. Hey, Lexi. So, yes, Mandalorians used to be Jedi hunters, and that's why they used Beskar. Or that's the traditional excuse for it. I guess, technically, I think Revan actually fought in the Mandalorian Jedi Wars, if I remember correctly, from KOTOR 1. I never played it myself, but I did play Star Wars The Old Republic, and that's like a sequel to the KOTOR series. So I may be a little bit off in some of my video game lore. But I do try. I do try. So at some point in this process, I may end up pulling out one of the bigger anvils. This is a miniature anvil. It's called a raising stake, but basically it's a miniature anvil. I might pull out one of the larger ones just so that we can take care of some of the larger creases that are starting to develop. We just don't have quite enough area on the surface of the raising stake in order to take care of some of those. So a good way to do that is to kind of pull out the anvil and do that on the face. We can definitely get some of that upsetting taken care of there. So I don't know. I may end up using my normal anvil, or I might end up using, like, I've got a railroad tie underneath of the computer, and then I have the swage block over there and the swage block stand. I might have enough space that's like not indented that I might be able to take care of those there. I don't know. Normally, I have like my raising setup right next to my anvil, and like the anvil is normally where it's going to be, and so I just like move from the raising stake over to the anvil, take care of it real fast, and then go back to work. But you know, it doesn't work when the anvil is behind the door over there. All right, let's do another heat. So we're starting to get some real nice crowning there. But we definitely have a lot of waves going on. So I really want to take care of that. So I think what we're going to do, some of them we can do, we've got high spots that we'll be able to take care of here on the stake, but there are some that we're going to have to use the anvil for. So I'll probably figure that one out here shortly. But this is, the shape is starting to get there. We're starting to get there. Hey Ping, welcome to the stream. All right, how am I gonna do this? Do I want to use, it's probably actually going to be the easiest thing to move is the swage block as opposed to the anvil, because the swage block is ever so slightly lighter. All right. And I'm going to move this back a little bit. Again, we'll probably move it over here, which is a slightly different angle. We will probably do the inside, like the wrinkles from the inside. We'll do that on our, not the next heat, but the heat after that. Can some of the ripple smoothing be done on a wooden block or stump? Yes, it can. Oftentimes it would be done on a wooden anvil or a wooden, like a stump, a block or a stump. Especially if you're doing it cold. This particular, it's just what I have it laying around. I don't really have any good wood that is in this shop because I moved most of my woodworking stuff down into the basement. Hey, Corwin, I actually have a question for you personally. If you are around, I don't know if you are or back to lurking, but I saw that UMBA, the Upper Midwest Blacksmith Association, is doing their conference in February. So like next month on like the 20 or the weekend of the 22nd, I believe. Oh, you are still here. Okay. But they haven't updated their website. There's just like a Facebook event notification, and there's like nothing there. Do you know anything about it? I know you know a few people who are in UMBA. I wasn't sure if you were like had any more information or if there was anywhere else that I can go to look for that. It's one of the events that I was trying to get to, but I may end up having to miss it because I just can't find enough information. I haven't heard anything, but I can find out. That would make me so happy. But I mean, if it's inconvenient, don't worry about it, you know. I don't even know where it is. It is in South Beloit, which is just on the Illinois side of the border near Chicago. Just on the Illinois side of the Wisconsin border. My grandparents actually used to live up there, but they moved to Texas a few years ago. So they don't stay up north anymore. But yeah, I know that it's in South Beloit. I know that it is like February, the weekend of like February 22nd or something like that. And that's it. There's like an address. It doesn't say who is the demonstrator. It doesn't say what the hours are. It doesn't say much of anything. So I wanted to get there, but I just don't know who to talk to. So if you guys have any information on that, please do let me know in the Discord, in a PM, whatever. That would be amazing. Otherwise, you know, I'll do some internet sleuthing. I just don't know that I'll get there in time. All right, let's do another heat. And I mean, it doesn't have to be amazingly right away either. So don't go out of your way for it. Or at least too far out of your way for it. All right, we're starting to smooth that out a little bit. But I think that I need to focus in on getting a piece of flat and working on those curves. So I think we're going to refocus the camera on the swage block and work a little bit that way. I didn't do much this time, but kind of figuring out the problem as I go. Okay, let's move the chair And then we'll move up the swage block so that I can kind of we'll need to move this back so I can get to the swage block with the camera. So for this particular shot, we're just using the swage block because it's convenient. Not necessarily because it's the right tool for the job. It's just relatively convenient. All right, there's where I put my soda, or my, it's not soda. I don't know why I said soda. It's not soda. All right. So we've got an ad break coming up. So basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm probably going to be holding the piece of, probably over here. We're going to be holding the piece kind of like so. We're going to be hammering around the piece. Woodworm Gaming is raiding with a party of 23. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for that raid. Wow, thank you guys so much. Welcome to the stream. I'm Ray. I am a blacksmith. Today we are working on a Mandalorian Pauldron. So this is a silversmithing technique that I am porting, I guess, or modifying for use with mild steel, which is your basic construction grade steel. So this is a thin sheet. It started out as, I believe, 18 gauge sheet steel. That's usually what I do my raising with. But yeah, sounds cool. We got a lot of lurkers in our chat. Awesome. I mean, I appreciate any support, you know, lurkers or active viewers, you know, we love that. I feel like we are a pretty good second monitor stream. There's a lot of very ASMR things that go on here. So welcome, welcome. Thank you guys for the raid so much. And thank you, mods, for that shout out. All right. I do have an ad coming up in about a minute and a half-ish. So I think I'm going to wait until that ad is done. And then from there, we will do our next heat. Welcome in, Knots. Welcome in. It says you're not lurking. Well, you know, just don't get in trouble at work. But yeah, we are continuing to work on our Mandalorian Pauldron. The part we are doing right now is the initial shape up. So we are taking the flat sheet and we are curving it, kind of doming it out into that shoulder shape. From there, in the next coming streams, we'll start decorating it. There is several pieces of edging that we need to do and a nice ridge in the center area that we've got to put in there. So that'll be in the next few streams that we are doing that. And then we also are going to be doing a little bit of a technique called chasing, which is basically using chisels and hammers to create a relief of an image. So we are going to be doing that for the Mudhorn image on the side of the Pauldron. So I'm doing this as close to the original image as possible. And I want to take it from the screen and make it real. And I mean, I know a lot of people have done that in cosplay, and there have been several people who have done that in steel. But I want to try my hand at it. It sounds like a fun project. And I hope that you guys have fun as well. Alrighty. Got plenty of heat. So for this next heat, what we're doing is I've got this swage block. It's a block of steel that has a whole bunch of domes in it. And it's pretty good. for what it is. And I've been interrupted by the ad, so I'll probably continue that after the ad is over. That way people don't miss it. Or maybe I'll just start repeating it, or like from the top, and repeat what I was talking about initially. But yeah. Whew. Man, I feel a lot better than I did like on Monday, but I still feel a little bit tired. So hopefully I can get my strength back this weekend and just, rest and sleep it off. Got a few things that I got to do this weekend though too. I've got to finish the last tiny little bit of the axe. And then I also need to kind of work on the trivet that we made. I have yet to finesse it and make it look a little bit nicer. So, I don't know. We'll see how well that goes. I'll see how much I actually get done. Welcome in, Sandwich. Welcome in. So for our next heat, what we're doing is we've developed quite a bit of rippling in towards the edge of this pauldron, and we want to see that happening because the ripples are how we're going to shrink the material and force it to flatten out and to curve, or I guess we're forcing it into the curve that we want. It's much more likely to stay where we put it if we chase in those wrinkles. It'll make the curve form a lot faster. So that's what we're doing right now. We're using the swage block, not necessarily because it is the proper job or the proper tool for the job, but it is definitely a convenient tool for this job. This could be done with a stump, a regular anvil, or any number of other flat objects. All right. All right, that was a really good one. We took that ripple right out of there. All right, so we've got a lot less ripples and we've got quite a bit of roundness. So I want to make this a little bit more bulbous. We're getting there, but it's not quite where I want to see it. I want to do one more round of flattening out some of those ripples on the flat surface, and then we'll go back to starting to form this round section again. Next is the leatherworking stream for making the padding. I mean, something like that. There really aren't any good strapping for this or for the Mandalorian armor, because I feel like in Star Wars, like the strapping is usually hidden. So there really isn't, it just kind of like sticks on his shoulder or like, onto the armor, almost like a magnet. So we're definitely going to need some strapping. And if we were going to be using this piece or like this piece of armor, in live combat or, you know, even in cosplay, we would definitely want to put in some padding. I haven't decided if I'm going to do that for our stream, just because I don't know that I really want to get into that. That's a completely different craft. I have done it in the past, but I'm not sure that that is something that we want to do for this stream. I will look into it. But on it, most armor smiths do not pad out the armor that they make. And the reason that they don't do that is because your padding is going to fit you a lot better if you fit it to your body when you're wearing it, or like so that you can wear it, right? So if I pad out this armor, it would be padded for me, or it would be padded for the butler, depending on who I was making it for. So I haven't decided who it's going to be for, you know, who's going to wear this armor. So until I figure out who's going to be wearing the armor, it's a little bit harder to pad it. Well, obviously, you would need to create another channel for it. I am not very good at leatherworking. I feel like maybe one video for the padding, and then I just like never touch that channel again. I mean, I have considered creating a secondary channel, but I was more like, you know, for travel videos and things like that, rather than, you know, another craft. I already have so many crafts. I feel like I'm more of a jack of all trades than a master of anything. So I think adding another craft is just a little bit overkill. But maybe in the future. If this becomes like what makes my channel blow up, you know, maybe I will do some padding for armor or something. All right. Let's do another heat. Like I said, we're going to, again, be kind of flattening out the interior curves to kind of make sure that we've got a good base to continue working. This is a very push and pull sort of project. All right. If I look down the central area, I'm going to do this for you guys so you can also kind of look down that central area. You can kind of see that we're starting to get relatively even shapes. We do have a slight curve off in towards myself in this direction. This side is much higher than that side. So we're going to kind of have to shift that whole thing. And to do that, we'll want to kind of hammer down on this side and not on that side. But we're getting there. We are going to continue to focus on this top bulbous section here, though, because I want to create that nice curve. But we're starting to get there. We're starting to get there. Hi, JK. I come here for smacking a metal and good discussions. Yeah, we do have so many good discussions here on the channel. Back and forth. I love that we all have, you know, at least a curiosity about some of the sciences of metal and just in general. There's a lot of really interesting and informative content, and I learned so much from you guys. I mean, I know that I teach you guys a little bit about metalworking, but you guys teach me a lot about a lot of things, you know? And I find that really fascinating, you know, just some of the stuff that you guys are into and you know, good at. It's exciting. I never know what I'm going to learn. All right, I am going to refocus the camera. And I'm going to kind of go over to the other side. This is going to be an interior angle, so you're probably not going to see quite as much of me hammering, but you are going to see quite a lot of what happens between the piece of steel and the stake. Move this a little bit closer. Hopefully you guys will be able to see it. I probably won't do too much in this view because I want to make sure that you guys actually get to see, you know, more of what I'm doing, but I do want to keep doing a few of the interior angles just so I have something to cut to. So now you have used it a little. How do you like the hammer? Too light, too heavy? I do really like it. I think my main critique is not something that you had any control over. My main critique is the handle. I'm not a big fan of it. You know, it just doesn't quite fit right in my hand. The hammer itself, it's working pretty well. It's just about the right weight for any other hammers that I would use for this. My typical hammers that I use are car body hammers. And so this is one of them, right? So this is like a Harbor Freight car body hammer. This one has a pick on one side and a flat on the other. They have several that are shaped more like this, and I do dress them for whatever I'm using. This particular one, be careful what you wish for. The next stop, a 2H talk about software quality and static node analytics. Ooh, that would be very complicated and probably over my head. But yeah, I will probably at some point rehandle this, but I think that I remember you talking about or telling Lexi that you just bought this handle. I mean, it's a great shape for a blacksmith hammer, right? But it's not quite the right shape for raising, because I want to hold it right here in the transition, and it's kind of weird, if that makes sense. But I love the head. It's working beautifully. It's doing exactly what it needs to do. It's just a tiny bit awkward to hold. Not anything I can't get over, but you know. I hope that's an adequate answer for you. No, I got the handle free from the carpenter shop at work. Okay. Yeah, it's not quite the right, like I said, it's not quite the right shape, but it's somewhat close. It's close enough that I can use it. So, I don't know. The head is beautiful. It works gorgeously. It's like it's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. So it's very well shaped. All right, let's do another heat. And I think I'm going to put the inset right there. Probably only going to do about 1 to 2 heats this way because it's not a great view for you guys, but I do need it for my video. I wish it was just a little bit. There we go. This will work a little easier. Getting rid of the hammer there for a second. Or I mean the stool. Goodness. I can speak. All right, that's exactly what I want to see. All right, so what we're starting to do is we're starting to shift this top in some more. So we're getting a much more bulbous shape. We want this to be closer to that top of that shoulder. And so yeah, we're gonna do another round kind of folding that in. I think I'm gonna get rid of the chair. It's a little bit too high, but I think it'll be all right. I like to sit down on a high stool and use this, or when I'm using this type of stake, but I'm usually working cold. So working hot is like a little bit awkward. What kind of finish are you going to give the armor after you have finished forming it? For this particular piece, because it is supposed to be a specific pauldron, which is the Din Djarin Mandalorian TV show pauldron, I'm just going to polish it up as shiny as I possibly can and then put a enamel gloss, like clear gloss over it, just so that it doesn't rust on it, or so it doesn't rust over. But I have done many different type of finishes for armor. One of the ones that a lot of my clients used to like a lot, because I've done a few pieces of armor professionally before, is a oil blackened, right? So what you do is you take linseed oil and you wipe the piece of armor in it, and then from the back side you take a torch and you start heating the steel, and then the linseed oil will start to darken into like a brownish black, and it's definitely not something that you can do indoors, and you need to wear a mask while you are doing it because the fumes are really bad for you, but it creates a really nice finish. You can also use any of the rattle can finishes, or as long as they are, you prime things first and they are rated for use on metal, you can use rattle cans. Car body paint works if you are trying to get a specific color. But yeah, like I said, for this particular piece, I will probably just use some rattle can enamel gloss just to get a nice shiny silver steel piece. Thanks for the information. Both finishes you mentioned sound good. Yeah, like I said, just be very careful with the boiled linseed oil because the fumes that it creates are nasty. You definitely don't want to inhale them. So very ventilate outdoors as close as much as you can. Also, I would recommend wearing a mask even outdoors so that you are not directly inhaling that because it's bad news. And then you will have to rattle can finish the interior of your armor because you're not wanting, or if you use the linseed oil on the inside, it's just going to boil up and it's not going to coat. So you still will have to use a rattle can on the inside. I read that black knights were loners because black was from a rust proofing process. It was used by very poor people, and those knights were usually mercenaries. Yep. Because, I mean, a wealthy, well-to-do, like, knight, I guess, person who wears armor, is going to have the ability to constantly keep it polished and clean. Whereas someone who is wearing it and they just don't have the money to have it maintained, they need to get it as rust proof and as good as possible for as a long period of time. The blacksmith paste, beeswax, BLO, and turpentine smells amazing when using it. Probably not a good smell though. Yeah, not really. But I try to be overly cautious because I'm putting all of this content out on the internet, right? So if I don't give the proper, hey, maybe you shouldn't do this, like exactly, then people will actually attempt it, and that's not always good. I don't really want to get sued. Another thing, don't try to be a blacksmith alone. Find a blacksmith to help you start learning, because there's some stuff that you don't see on the internet. Some big old mistakes that I don't want you guys to make too. Alrighty. One more heat on this view, and then we will go back to our behind view over the shoulder. There went my other piece. Or my other. It was my other tongs. That's what I was trying to say. My other tongs. Yes. This has been a Ray Smithy PSA. Yeah. Don't do this at home unless you are, trained or are a, professional yourself. And I'm not saying don't start blacksmithing. I'm just saying go find an Abana affiliate or a blacksmith near you, and start there. Hey, Bluesy, welcome to the stream. Welcome. All right. Drink first, then move the camera. Yeah, I just don't really want to be liable if you guys, burn yourself severely or, cut yourself, damage yourself. As the butler has said on many occasions, it's usually unlikely that you're going to blow yourself up with a propane tank unless you're really, really misusing it. But, still an option. Definitely don't blame me if that happens. When starting a new forge, bring someone with you. someone who is going to be able to call 911 if you've accidentally made a pipe bomb. Don't try this at home. Ray is a professional. I am. Dang it, I already got tore up by skeeters this morning. Oh, I don't like mosquitoes, but they like me. Damn it, Bluesy, I was getting ready to try this at home. It's a good thing you heard that PSA. I see, John, I think that you are, you've probably been blacksmithing longer than I have. So, I figure you probably got it covered. You're probably one of the people that I would send other people to. Yeah, I could have died. Yes, I think you're good. I think you're good. But, I can't be like, everybody, I gotta cover my rear end in case somebody, decides to blame me for their own Darwin moment. You do what you want, not, but you should be safe. I mean, you should be, but yeah. So yeah, I do try to be very upfront about safety concerns with blacksmithing and when I'm doing things that may or may not be the safest. I have a tendency to think of safety as a third thing as opposed to safety first, because a lot of this stuff, if I were safety first about it, I just wouldn't do it. A few weeks ago, the third season of Knockmecken came out, a show which is literally called Don't Try This at Home. They do all the things one should never do, right? But they probably, it's either, or like, I would imagine it's either videos of people who found out the hard way, or if it's, more of a Mythbusters type show, I'm sure that they have medical professionals on standby. That reminds me of shaking hands with, I kind of trained, right? Shaking hands with danger, right? Ping! Thank you so much for re-upping your subscription. Yay, thank you so much for that support. You are at 13 months. Goodness gracious, that is crazy. I feel it. I know I just celebrated my 1 year, like last Friday, but it feels like it hasn't been that long, We have a friend who lives by safety third. Hubcap is only missing a few fingers, though. I do have a healthy respect for my tools and my materials and everything that I do here. But yeah, if I was like super concerned about safety, I probably wouldn't do this. In this season, they perform a lot of tasks using thermite because they can. Every farmer does that, but you can still be safe-ish, just not stupid. Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things where you need to be safe and you need to learn how to be safe before you can kind of bend the rules, Learn the rules before you break the rules. And try not to break the rules. All right, let's do another heat. We're getting more lovely wrinkles. Like I said, these are good wrinkles. Chasing those in will help us maintain the movement that we want. So we're starting to get some real nice curvature there. That's that nice shoulder curve. We're really liking that. And we're actually starting to get a nice straight. So when I started this, I actually cut this at a curve just because I wanted that nice straight after it had been curved. And we're starting to get that. We're going to get that over here on this side as well. But we still have a little bit more to do. We kind of got to curve that in just a little bit, but not nearly as much as the top end. I have used thermite before to weld tracks together. All rules can be broken, but no rule must be ignored. Yes, if you're going to break rules, be very deliberate about it. Know why you are breaking the rule and why it is necessary to break the rule. Because if it's not necessary, then don't break it. The tracks you run your engine crane on, the ones hanging from the ceiling. Yeah, it takes a lot of heat to weld something like that together quickly. They also use that for like train tracks and things like that because they have to weld them very quickly. So they tend to use that technique. Welding tracks is a usual application for thermite. Yes, yeah. Definitely not something that you want to play with if you are not very familiar with how to use it like a professional. Don't do this at home, but I mean, that's the whole point of the show, right? Don't try this at home. In the show, they use thermite, for example, to de-ice a freezer. Ooh, that seems very overkill to me. Did they burn through the ice and into the refrigerator itself? Because I feel like that's what you're asking for right there. That's what you're asking for. Working at a business end of working tractor is like shaking hands with danger. Yes, definitely. But I mean, I feel like horses are just as dangerous as tractors can be. Because like you startle a horse and they can kill you so easily. You got to be so careful with a horse. There would be no ice in the refrigerator. Yes. Yes, definitely. No ice in the fridge. But yeah, I mean, there are so much dangerous stuff with farming. So that's why they have, college level courses on farming and, apprenticeships, family passes on to the younger generation. As mostly in the show, not as much in left of the object in question at the end. So it would be successful. Yay! They play lead pouring with thermite in an outside pool. That makes sense because you would want to do it very far away from any human beings, if possible, for that much thermite. I assume it would be like at least a kitchen size freezer. All right, we're gonna do another heat on the shoulder section, and then we're gonna turn the whole thing around, and we're gonna start curving in the bottom. Like I said, I want to curve it in just a little bit, not a lot, but just enough. Somehow I knew that was going to happen. Alrighty. So I'm pretty happy with what we've got going on as far as the curve. We may end up coming back to that probably sometime on Friday. But right now we're going to heat up this section here and work on that a little bit. The lead pouring is a different application, but they use a lot of thermite for it. I used thermite to disassemble a race engine I blew up once. I put 2 rods in the same cylinder, and the block was no match for the disassembly power of thermite. Is lead pouring a thing in the United States, by the way? Honestly, I don't know. I really don't know. I think that there are some industrial purposes and facilities that do pour lead for specific applications. However, it's definitely not something that's like publicly available because, you know, it leads to all kinds of brain damage and cancers and things. But like I said, I think there are still some uses and industrial places that do use it. Oh no, then it seemingly is not. It is a game typically played on New Year's Eve. Oh, okay. Then no. It must not be a thing then here. Fishermen pour their own lead jigs. They still let you do that? That's actually a little bit surprising, to be honest. Not anymore. It was when I started plumbing, but it's not a thing now, except in historical restoration. Yeah, I remember pouring lead weights with my grandfather as a kid for fishing, but I guess I didn't think that they let you do that anymore. Because I mean, all of the bait shops around here, they just sell you the lead weights. They don't sell like lead for you to melt. Actually, lead singers are not allowed anymore. Oh, lead singers are not allowed anymore. Yeah, I don't know for sure, but black power firearm shooters cast their own bullets. Oh, lead sinkers aren't allowed anymore. Okay, yeah. They like I said, they have their own little, like, you can sell, or the bait shops sell like the weights. They may be pewter these days because there are lead-free pewters that have very similar weight to lead. So yeah, you know. Black powder firearm shooters cast their own bullets. I mean, that's definitely something that people used to do, but I don't. And like, I could not tell you whether they do or not because I am not a reenactor. Yeah, I'm definitely not a reenactor, so I can't speak on that topic. You melt lead in a spoon over a candle and then pour it into a glass of water. The lead obviously immediately solidifies into random shapes. Then you try to interpret the shape and what it tells you about the future for the upcoming year. Today, usually wax is used as lead is not allowed anymore. Okay. So I used to do a lot of that in school, but not with lead. You can make some really, really pretty pieces with sterling silver is what I used to use, right? So I would take the jewelry crucibles and I'd melt my sterling silver and then pour them into a bucket and retrieve the sterling silver at the end. What it produces with that is there are little bubbles, and sometimes they're popped and sometimes they're just like full bubbles. They're hollow on the inside, and there's usually at least a little pinhole in them, but they make really pretty like stone so if you're setting a stone, they make really pretty like fixtures for jewelry. When I was racing, we used to collect wheel weights and melt them into a valve cover for a ballast. 55 pounds for valve cover filled up. Ooh, that's really heavy. In the show, they do it large scale by setting off several kilograms of thermite over a pool. Ooh, yeah, that would be quite a large amount. Yeah, definitely big. All right, let's do another heat. I put this on the wrong side. Maybe if I put it on this side, that'd be better. We're starting to get there. All right, so I kind of want to expand this bulbous section over here down further, so we'll probably spend a good amount of time of Friday doing that, or at least some time doing that. I do want to still try to get that central ridge in there a little bit, so I think we'll do a little bit of both. That works too. I can drop it, I guess. We've made quite a bit of progress with this because when we started today, we were unable to get the whole piece into the forge, and now we can. So we've made quite a bit of progress. In the older seasons, they try to cook a whole frozen turkey by placing it in front of a whole wall of microwave ovens with their doors removed, and the safety contacts jumpered, of course. Yeah. I hope they're doing that in or from a safe distance or behind, like, you know, something like a lead drape or something. They did, yeah. Microwaves are not cool. They're not fun. It's not like, radiation, or it's not as bad as radiation, but it'll definitely give you a sunburn. You do not need lead for microwaves, luckily. Yeah. You don't need it because, like I said, it's not like radiation or anything, but I kind of feel like it's, I would personally treat it kind of like almost like an X-ray machine. No sunburn, actually, rather a gut burn. Oh, okay. So it's cooking you from the inside out then. Could be. I suppose I thought you'd get a sunburn because when I microwave things, it tends to be like burning hot on the outside, and then the interior of my meat or whatever it is that I'm cooking is ice cold. So I guess I misinterpreted that a little bit. So yeah, over the next stream, we will continue to kind of shape the shoulder. And then from when I'm happy with the shape of it, what we're going to do is we're going to take that giant disc of steel and we're going to start edging the shoulder plate. So there is that giant ridge down the center, and we're going to start that by putting the piece of, or like the piece of armor over top of that disc that I showed you guys, and hammering it nice and smooth and making sure that we are denoting the corners. And that's kind of how we're going to make that ridge. It's going to be a nice stake behind there. And then we will also be using that same piece of steel for the edging. There are ridges all along the edge. We're also going to fold it around because we don't want a sharp edge to catch us if we're wearing this piece. So we're going to fold the edge of the steel over into the back side. Normally, a lot of people will actually fold it onto the front side, and it makes a really pretty edge for our piece of armor, but we're going to fold it around the back. I'm not sure of that whole inside out cooking. I've microwaved plenty of stuff and had the inside still cold or frozen. That's kind of what I was thinking. The wavelength is far, far longer than ionizing radiation like UV. The frequency is actually in a similar range as Wi-Fi. It's just the exact right wavelength to make water molecules resonate and therefore heat up the water. So you will rather be boiled than burned. Okay. So that also makes a little bit of sense because you would be, or if that's how it works, then you're boiling the water starting with the outside and then getting further in, probably. Maybe that's how it works. Inside out only as long as water is on the inside and not on the outside. Okay. That also makes more sense when they tell you that to put a bowl of water in the microwave when you're cooking certain things, because then it'll moisturize it a little bit. Yes, exactly. If you have a whole block of ice, it starts melting from the outside. Yeah. Okay. We're going to do another heat. We should be getting an ad relatively quickly. I'm not entirely sure because I don't have my timer up right now, but I feel like it should be relatively quickly. And once again, I put this in backward, or I picked this out backwards. There we go. That's better. Seems to be doing all right. Slowly but surely. Taking as long as it's going to take. There we go. Much more better. If the thing you try to heat up has very little water in it, you should add some water in the microwave oven as a sink for the radiation, because the energy needs to go somewhere. Otherwise, the oven might be damaged, or the oven might be damaged. This is also why a microwave oven should not be run empty, even not even for testing. Yeah, I knew that you needed to put something in a microwave, or it just it would damage the interior of the microwave, or I guess the elements of the microwave. So yeah. We're going to do a couple more heats with this today, and then I'm probably going to end the stream. I'm starting to get a little bit on the tired side, and I want to go back in and rest. Just like I said, I'm still not quite 100%. So yeah, we'll do a few more heats, and then I'll probably raid off. We've got about a half an hour left in the stream, so it's not too early, but we might raid off just a little bit early. I don't have any more. I'm out of water, so that's another thing. We ran out of Gatorade and soda and have yet to go to the store to get more, so I'm down to water, and we bought a case of this local soda called Ski. It's like a lemon lime soda with, or I guess it's more like a lemon and orange soda. So it's weird. It's not quite. It's not like Sprite or anything. It's orange and lemon soda. Just put your best friend's mom's fine china with gold accents in the microwave. Oh yeah. It's a great way to crack the gold accents. So back in the day, I'm gonna say back in the day, but it was really not that far back. If you put a CD, like a music CD or like a computer CD-ROM disc, in the microwave, you could get some really cool effects. It didn't work, or it didn't do much, for the microwave itself, but it was kind of pretty. Looked it up. Visible light is between 380 and 790 THz. UV is thus above that. Microwaves are at about 2.4 gigahertz. One of these days, I'm going to try the microwave foundry thing and see what kinds of metal I can cast when I get a throwaway microwave. I have a toaster oven. That's a throwaway toaster oven. Oh, THZ is terahertz. It's been a really long time since I have dealt with hertz as a unit of measure. I think the last time I really did anything with hertz was when I was in physics class in high school. I have like 5 microwaves. I used to have a really teeny microwave that lived in the basement of the house back before I moved to this house. We got rid of it, but it was the one that I used to have when I lived in the dorms in college. And when I moved in with the butler, I brought it with me, but we didn't need it because the butler had a better microwave. So it lived in the basement, but I think we gave it away. I actually only use one, but people give me random things. It's also how I got a lot of my old game consoles. Old game consoles are so much fun to have laying around. We have so many, but those weren't given to us. The butler actually had them and collected them. I think you better try soon, Lexi. Most microwaves these days have ditched the transformers and give to introverters or inverters. Oh, and gone to inverters. Microwave throwaways on every curb in a college town, right? Like I said, I saved mine, but I think we ended up giving it away to some random person when they needed one. That or we broke it. I can't remember. I know I broke our convection oven, like the one that came or that we had in the house before this one. I tried to do a burnout by cranking it up to 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 8 hours, and it burned out the filaments or like the heating coils, and we were never able to fix it. So we ended up using a ginormous toaster oven. It was a combination toaster oven and like, what are those other things? Air fryer. It was really nice. We kind of moved away from stoves for a while because I had that. Oops. Yeah. So be careful. Don't burn out microcrystalline wax in your household oven, even though technically it would work. Practically, it does not work. So try not to, or so don't try it. So we have an ad break coming in about 1.5 minutes. Once that's over, I'll do my next heat. Yeah, I got made fun of for that by the butler's family for many years after that. But I mean, to be fair, the piece that I burned out in the oven was a gift for one of them. So they would not have had their really nice pewter dog statuette if I had not broken the oven. It was probably not worth it, though. I won't lie. It was probably not worth it. Like I said, I'm getting tired, man. I'm sorry. I'll probably do a few more heats, but I will, I'll probably do maybe 4 more heats, and then I'll probably rate off. I'm getting real tired. I'm sorry. I will be back on Friday. We will be continuing this project. Hopefully we'll get to the point where we can start chasing and decorating it. That will make me very happy. I did actually plan for 6 streams for this project, and we're only on stream 2. But I was hoping that I would have plenty of time for the Mudhorn piece. Because I think that's where all of the time is actually going to go. It takes a lot of patience and a lot of little tiny hammer hits in order to make a nice piece of chased imagery. A friend tested her new kitchen stove by cranking up all the hot plates at the same time. The stove survived, but the glass in the window behind did not. Ooh. Yeah, that'd be a good way to lose the temper in your glass. Add time, add time. Goodness, goodness gracious. It just cracked. I can imagine why it would have just cracked. This side is done a little bit better than this side. This side has a little bit of an edge to it. I need to take off. I'll have to do that before Friday's stream. This side is a little bit less sharp on there. There was a tiny bit of heat involved. I imagine that there was more than a tiny bit of heat involved. Man. Honestly, it sounds like she probably messed with the temper of the glass, right? So, you know, when you're casting glass, you have to lower the temperature of that glass like a very, very gradually. And if you raise or if you raise the temperature of glass too rapidly, or if you cool it too rapidly, it will just shatter into, you know, however many pieces. So that's really probably, or that's what it sounds like happened. Yeah, you know. I took glass class when I was in college, and when you lost your piece, like when it slumped or did something that you didn't want it to do, when you wanted to get rid of it, what we would do is break it off of the punty rod and then just put it in these buckets of glass, or like refuse glass, but they would randomly shatter inside the bucket. Ah. We're getting there, slowly but surely. My steak is starting to move, so I'm gonna put this back in the fire, and then we are going to tighten that up. I guess the problem is heating up the glass unevenly, or so it cracks. Yes, definitely happens. Nice. Like I said, I'm starting to get tired, so we're probably gonna finish up here shortly. I almost broke the Thermix I borrowed from my mother by trying to make mousse au chocolate. The molten chocolate was so hot so the eggs curled and made for a very tough mess. It started smoking. Yeah, that's not cool. That reminds me of the time that I tried to make soda. So I got into my head, around the time where they started making those like soda spray things where it's just like it would carbonate the water and then you just put syrup in the machine and then you hit it and it'll like spit out soda. I got it into my head that I wanted to make my own syrup. And so we bought a bunch of like candied fruit and we tried to make, so I guess it was like we bought sugar and orange, fresh oranges, and we squeezed the oranges into the sugar, and it was supposed to be a double boil thing, and we had it at a double boil, but like it ended up burning, and it was so awful. The smoke smelled so bad, and the smell did not go away for like a week and a half. It was awful. Probably each of us at least once put syrup in first and got a surprise, right? Anybody who's tried that, yeah. It was not cool. Not at all. Needless to say, I decided that I was not going to make soda because, you know, I never tried it again. Now we're into making bread. The butler likes making bread. All right, let's do another heat. Bread. All right. So from this side, it looks pretty good. From on the other side, it looks a lot less good. So I think we're going to heat this guy up and see if we can't pull this side down a little bit. Ooh, I make bread every 3 days or so. See, I wish we could do that, but we don't have we don't have enough time to do it every 3 days. So we'll do it when we're really into it. We'll do it about once a week. And there are stretches where we just don't make any bread, but it's really good. I like making bread. The bread that we make though, it's it's not like bread maker bread or like bread that you would make or that is a loaf bread. It's more like a hard crust bread. BRB coffee run to the main house. Tried sourdough yet? We have not tried sourdough. I feel like sourdough is a lot of responsibility. You know, you got to keep your sour starter, and you got to keep it alive. I don't know that I'm ready for that responsibility. One time I tried to melt chocolate in a microwave oven. Outside was still cold. The inside burned black and the smell was awful. I can imagine. That does sound awful. Typically, when I am trying to melt chocolate, I will melt it over the stove, just because it's easier for me to keep track of it. So we're gonna do 2 more heats. Like I said, we're gonna try and pull the side down. It's a little bit lopsided right now, and I want to straighten it out. It is work for sure. I'm always killing my starter by forgetting about it. Yeah, like you have to feed it like every, is it 2 or 3 days? I'm pretty sure it's not every single day, but it's like every few days. And I just do not have the patience nor the responsibility. I would forget about it. So yeah, we make crusty bread. We don't make sourdough. Melting chocolate takes hot, but not too hot water and patience. If you boil it, the chocolate separates into its components and can be pretty much disposed of. Yes. But that's why I tend to do it over the stove, because then it's like I can watch it actively and make sure that I don't screw it up. Because screwing it up is never fun. Okay. Okay. Ah. More heat. We'll get there. It just takes some patience. In and out, in and out. Okay. I think we're probably going to make more progress on the flat of the swage block. So let's do that. That'll be my last heat. We'll do 1 more heat on the swage block. So let's move the camera real fast. I gotta move behind the camera first so that I don't end up accidentally tripping myself over the cabling. Oh, speaking of cabling, guys. So the other day, I guess it was Friday, I told you guys that we got a new wireless HDMI cable, or I guess dongle. So we can plug it directly into the capture card and then into the camera, and it'll transmit over Bluetooth. And I wasn't sure how well it was going to work because it just seemed really cheap. Well, you know what? We tried it and it works so beautifully. So it means that we're going to be able to use the good cameras for all of the trips that we're doing this year, as opposed to the cell phone. So we will see less of a drop in quality. So that's really exciting. So making armor is like melting chocolate, patiently heating it up. Yes, very much so. Patiently patiently shaping it. So yeah, I'm super excited. If I can make it to the UMBA conference, the Upper Midwest Blacksmith Association conference, that will be our first trip of the year. And that is in the end of February. If I don't make it to that one, then our first trip will, I believe, be in March. I believe it's in March through April, like the last weekend. It's either that or April to May, but I think it's March. But to where does it transmit the picture when you are outside? Are you going to carry the laptop with you and use that for streaming instead of the phone? Yes. So we have Wi-Fi, or we can make our phone a hotspot, and so then I'm going to carry the laptop with me, and so I'm going to hold that with the transmitter stuff in a case, and then I will be untethered, but I will have bigger chat, and we will be able to use the good cameras. So yes, it'll be a phone Wi-Fi tether, but it will be from the laptop. So it should actually work a lot better. We will have the intro and the outro and all of that. So it's going to be an improvement for Ray's Smithy on the road. I'm super excited. I think that it's probably a good thing that this is going to be our last heat for the day, because I think the propane tank is starting to freeze up because I didn't submerge it in water today. I will definitely be submerging it in water on Friday, but the heat is starting to slow down a bit. Interesting thing. There are things that can go wrong, but if it works, it's going to be great. Yeah, there are definitely things that could go wrong. And we did test, like, it doesn't have nearly the range that it claims. So we went from one end of the house to the other, and there were 2 walls in between us, but it started breaking up the signal. So we got to be a little bit careful that while we're not tethered by cables, we are somewhat tethered by the range of the transmitter. But I'm hoping it works. HDMI is a lot of bandwidth for Bluetooth. I agree. I don't know how it works, but it seems to. I saw it with my own eyeballs. All right, we're getting there. We will make it. It'll happen. So it's starting to look a lot more like a pauldron now. We do have a weird little curve here that I will definitely have to deal with. We'll probably have to smooth that transition out by cutting that little bit off there, or maybe folding it a little bit further there. But I think that we're making it. It's happening. I do think that we're going to take a few heats on Friday to continue shaping this guy. We'll probably do a lot of that here on a flat. It'll probably be the regular anvil. And then we will we'll start working on that central stripe. But that's all she wrote for the day. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I have had a blast. I hope you guys have as well. So once again, I will be back here on Friday. And yeah, so have a great rest of your day, and I will see you then. Yes, thank you guys. All right. GG Ray, see you next time. Thank you, Mahalo. All right, who are we going to raid to? Let's see, let's see. Ooh, Miramax on. Ooh, the one with soups is also on. Let's go with Miramax. We like to support our lovely makers and crafters. Serious, thank you as well. There we go. Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much. See you later. Bye.